Just 12 days after one of the most exciting days of her life, the wedding of her only son, Jordan, Shirley THIESSEN was planning for a funeral. And she's here today to talk about the sudden death of her son, what she learned about grief, and also how her faith endured in the midst of such a tragic event. Shirley, welcome to 100 Huntley Street.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about Jordan. He was born just a few days after your 5th anniversary. What kind of kid was he?
Well, I think disciplined and responsible could be used to describe him. He was very committed to his younger sister, Chantel, and took his role of big brother very seriously.
And he didn't give you too many problems, from what I understand, going through the years?
You know, he really did make parenting easy. And I think part of it was he understood consequences. He actually could hear of someone else's poor choices and learn from them without having to make those poor choices himself. That's a great advantage.
It is, yeah. So he was not showing much interest in girls, but then he meets this girl named Elise, and things started to change for him.
Absolutely. We actually were shocked when he sent us an email and said, "Hey, Mom, Dad, you'll be so excited. I have a girlfriend." And it was like, oh, he's pulling our leg. But it was true. And so we were just so delighted, and to be able to watch him kind of lean into being a boyfriend when he used to mock others.
So he's at Trinity Western University in Langley. Him and Elise graduate. They come back here to Calgary. They get married. What an exciting day.
Oh, life was great. I mean, my husband and I were secretly celebrating that our son was officially launched. I mean, like other parents, we had prayed for this kid. We had spent so much time and money and energy. And now he was paying his own bills. He was married. He had his career job. Like, life was great.
Yeah, 23 years old. So he's, in his this new job. You and your husband head off to California. All the wedding stuff is now behind you. You're just kind of relaxing. So, and one day you go out shopping.
Well, I was in the store to buy one item actually for our condo kitchen. And I was going to make it just a quick trip, be back at the pool with my book in record time. But I walk into the store and there is a rack of dresses on clearance that caught my eye. Simply because there was a black dress right in the middle of the flowery, lightweight dresses that clearly did not belong. And so I went over, I had a look at the dress, and I held it on the hanger, and I thought, oh, if I ever needed a black dress, this would be the one I might choose. It was well sewn, it was very comfortable fabric, I liked the design, but I didn't need a black dress, and so I put it back. And as I walked away, I heard the words, "I want you to buy that black dress. You are going to a funeral."
Wow.
And my head just kind of flipped around, and I thought, who said that? And there were people in the store, but there was no one within speaking range. And I was kind of weirded out by that and continued to walk away, and the words repeated, but now this time kind of like a ticker tape in my head, and I read it. And so before I knew what was happening, my feet are off to the change room, and I find myself standing in front of a full-length mirror wearing the dress. It felt so comfortable, kind of like a hug. But I thought, what am I doing? I don't know anyone who has recently died. I have no funeral to attend. And I already have a black dress in my closet. What am I doing? And yet those words repeated. And I remember looking at the price tag going, oh, well, it's on clearance. I think I'm just going to have to buy this and go.
So you buy the black dress, you go home, you're with your husband, a police officer in California knocks on the door and tells you guys you have to phone the Calgary Police Service. I'm sure there was instant panic there.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, his brusque manner kind of put us on edge. And he just said, "Do you have a son living in Calgary, Alberta, Canada?" It's like, yes. Is his name Jordan THIESSEN? Yes. Well, then call this number, Calgary Police, immediately. I don't know what it's about. And immediately my husband started dialing or trying to and was shaking so badly. And I just felt like my feet were frozen to the ground. Fear was strangling me. I really didn't know what this was about. And so when Carrie got connected by phone to Sergeant McNaughton in Calgary, it was not what I heard Carrie really say, but as he just held onto his head and said, "Not my son, not my son." And immediately I knew that Jordan had died.
And he had an accident at work here in Calgary.
Yes, he was working for an environmental company. They were at a smokestack in central Alberta, and he fell 116 feet down an elevator shaft and died upon impact.
And then you had to work your way back to Calgary. Before you did that, you had to call Elise to tell her that her husband of 12 days was killed. That must have been the worst phone call you ever had to make.
Well, Elise was working at the time, and so my voice message was left on her phone, and I was actually praying that she wouldn't call back, that her mom would reach her in time to tell her the news, because I thought, I don't want her to hear this over the phone. And yet she did call back, and it was the most difficult conversation I've ever had to make, to gently try to tell this young woman that she's now a widow.
After less than 2 weeks of marriage. How did that challenge your faith, Shirley?
Well, it was, first of all, I had the really tangible gift of God of a little black dress to wear to my son's funeral. And that certainly gave me a lot of confidence in knowing that God is with me and He will never leave or forsake me. And certainly I clung to that through the funeral and the first few weeks. And then it's like when the shock of grief starts to lift and you realize all that you've lost, I just fell into a crisis of faith. I thought, oh, I can't believe God would allow this. I know He is all powerful, He's sovereign. So for Him to not step in and save my son, it felt like indifference or apathy. And I couldn't bear that. And it just really made me angry. Seething rage might be a better description.
Yeah. But you did get through.
I did.
And you've written, and by the way, the black dress that you bought that day in California for your son's funeral. And again, it's just such an emotional story. It's a very emotional book. But that's the dress that you have on today. The name of the book is A Little Black Funeral Dress, 5 Things I Wish I'd Known About Grief. And when we come back, we're going to just briefly talk about some of the things that you learned about grief and trying to bring hope to people that are going through it, because we all go through it, and we'll be right back. And we're back with Shirley THIESSEN. Her son Jordan was killed in a work-related accident just 12 days after he was married. Shirley, in your book, you talk about the 5 things that you wish you had known about grief. But I want to just hit a couple of them. The first one, the lesson is you're not going crazy when you're going through grief.
Well, that was such a surprise to me, some of the physical things that happen. Well, first of all, grief is so exhausting. I had no idea. I'm used to moving at a pretty high pace, and I was flat out hardly able to function. I wish someone had told me that. I lost my taste buds for a time. I couldn't taste. I love food. I thought, is this my future, not being able to taste food? I had irrational fear. I'm generally not a worrier.
Oh, you're worrying about your daughter,
Oh, yes.
Chantel, because that's now your only child.
Exactly. And so I saw it as being very irrational things that normally wouldn't rattle me, and now they did. There's
Memory loss.
Memory loss, yes. In fact, I still blame grief a little bit for my memory loss. I'm not sure if it's related, but there are so many physical things that I wish I had known I could anticipate, because it really compounded my grief. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going crazy. I can't function. I can't follow people in conversations like I once did. My work was affected. There were so many things that I wish I just knew.
Another one is very important, hurtful things that can be said. So you have to choose to forgive and even keep people at a distance if necessary, because they could say hurtful things. how do we become, really helpful to people that are going through grief?
Well, first of all, I have to say that before my son died, I was one of those people that didn't know what to say or to do that was helpful for my grieving friends. And my friends have taught me how important it is to come alongside. And your presence is certainly very, very helpful. But some things that you shouldn't say, like at least. Any phrase that starts with at least, just remove it from your vocabulary.
Yeah, like for your former daughter-in-law, I guess you'd say, well, you're young, you can get married again. That's you can't say that.
Well, they'd say, at least you're young, you'll find another husband. And she just wanted to scream out, I don't want another husband, I want Jordan. Or saying, well, at least you had him for 23 years. Well, that's true, but it's not helpful. It actually diminishes my loss to offer a silver lining of sorts. Or at least you have other children.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
And before we go here, we'll just hit one more. People who think grief has a timeline have never suffered profound loss. Grief can often last a lifetime.
Absolutely. And I think for myself, my heart won't heal completely until heaven. And I have had to reconcile to that. I used to think that after a year or so, it'd be good. Not the case. And certainly the deeper the relationship, the deeper the grief.
And then a couple more, we won't be able to get into them, but lesson 4, grief will change you. And the last one is the hope heroes are priceless, people that will come around you. Shirley, you seem like now you've gone through this process, obviously. How are you doing now?
Well, thanks for asking. I certainly have grief triggers that come out of nowhere, and I've learned to just roll with it instead of regretting it. I feel like I am doing well because God has given me so many opportunities to recycle my pain for His good purpose as I participate.
Yeah, I know you talk about it in the book, Recycling Your Pain. That's a good thought. The name of the book, The Little Black Funeral Dress, 5 Things I Wish I Had Known About Grief, from Shirley THIESSEN. Shirley, thank you for being on the program today. And it's a little book, but it is packed with so much important information. You tell the story, of course, losing Jordan, what you went through, and then the whole grief process, what you learned and what we can learn together. And if you're dealing with grief, you've lost perhaps a loved one. It could even be grief from losing a job, or there's many things that we go through in life. We have amazing prayer people standing by that will pray with you, encourage you. And if you need professional help, or finding a community of people that can help you to grieve, give us a call, 1-866-273-4444. Our folks can point you in the right direction.
Hey, if you were impacted by the stories shared today, hit our subscribe button. Stay up to date with all of our life-changing stories shared on 100 Huntley Street.